This is the Springfield Prodigy. Springfield has been selling the idea that they can take a high-end style pistol platform like the 2011, but deliver it for a much more affordable price. So today we're going to take a look at it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and see, did Springfield execute on that idea, or is it impossible to make something like a 2011 at such an affordable price? So I know you might be saying, affordable? That thing's $1,500. How do you possibly call that affordable for such an expensive pistol? And yes, $1,500 is a good chunk of change. But compared to other 2011s out there, or 2011 style pistols, that's actually a pretty cheap way to get into the game and get something that might still be decent. Now, when you're talking about taking something that's normally $2,000 plus and dropping it $500 below that price point, you're gonna be cutting some corners somewhere. First off, this uses MIM or die-cast parts, so the parts are not going to be as high quality that you would see as machined parts in a Staccato or a similar platform. The other thing is quality control is probably going to take a dive, right? For getting something like this, even though it is factory fit and not hand fit, you still can't have the same level of quality control that you'd see from a hand-fit pistol, where you're actually taking a gunsmith and assembling it. This is more of a factory worker assembling the pistol. That doesn't inherently make it bad, but when you have a platform like the 2011 with such tight tolerances, I foresee that we're going to have some issues there. So let's talk about it, and first let's get into what I like about the pistol. So the first thing I really like about the pistol is the grip texture. This is one of the best grip textures I've ever seen. It is super aggressive. It is super nice. It's like a fine grit sandpaper, but it's not so aggressive where it's tearing your hands apart. It's just so aggressive where I can get a really solid purchase on this pistol. It also looks good, right? If you're one of those people that really cares about aesthetics is not going to be an issue with the Prodigy. It looks very nice. It looks very clean. It kind of helps with that clean and simple design that you've got on the Prodigy. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, which also obviously saves the manufacturing costs. There's no issue of hand slipping or anything like that when you're shooting this pistol. It is a concern of some pistols. Some pistols just have a very slippery grip texture out of the box. The Prodigy, not so much. This was definitely designed, at least when it comes to the grip texture, with the shooter in mind. The next thing I want to praise Springfield about is the sights. On my previous reviews of Springfield pistols, I have really bashed on the sights that came on the pistol. I don't like tritium sights, I don't like anything on my rear sight, and Springfield, you knocked it out of the park with these sights. You have a blacked out rear, fiber optic front. There's literally no better way to do pistol sights in my opinion, other than completely blacked out sights. If you're going to have iron sights that have something other than blacked out sights, blacked out rear, fiber optic front is the way to do it, hands down, the end. It is the closest to a red dot you can get without getting a red dot on your pistol. It is so easy to shoot, so fast. It is fantastic. And I really wish Springfield would have done this on the Hellcat and on the Echelon, but it is what it is. The fact that it is on the Prodigy, especially a higher end pistol, you're getting higher end sights. That's what I like to see. So the next thing about this pistol that I really like is the trigger. The trigger is just fantastic, right? It's really hard to mess up a 1911 trigger, and Springfield did not mess this trigger up. So here we've got our take up to our wall, just a teeny bit right there, nothing crazy, not a ton of slack in there, just a little bit, and there is a little grub screw right here, so it is possible that you might be able to adjust that out. I haven't messed with that, but that might be a possibility. So we go here, take up to the wall. Wall is nice to find, and just like a nice little glass rod brake, you've got our brake and our reset. Inch forward just a little bit, just a little bit, just a bit, and there's our reset right there, very nice and crisp, and there's our brake again. So a very nice trigger pull, probably somewhere in the 4 to 5 pound range, which to some people that might be too heavy for a 2011 style platform. I don't have an issue with it. I didn't have any issues shooting it paired to higher end 2011 pistols. The trigger's going to feel a little nicer, and it's going to be a little lighter, but I understand because Springfield is advertising this as a potential duty and self-defense pistol, so I get having a slightly heavier trigger pull, but still having the clean, crisp trigger pull of the 2011 platform. Now, another great thing about this pistol, it's a 2011, and it shoots like a 2011. It's a dream to shoot this thing. It shoots really, really nice. It's not perfect by any means. It's not the nicest 2011 out there, but it shoots pretty damn good, and so that's definitely one thing to say is Springfield made a pretty nice shooting pistol for the price when it comes to pure, raw shooting performance. So another thing I gotta give Springfield credit for is the optic system. Instead of going and making their own optic system that may or may not be successful, they said, let's just go to a company that already makes a quality optic system, and for them, that was Agency Arms with the AOS optic system. Now, the plates are expensive at about $100 a piece, but ultimately you get what you pay for, so it's not a huge complaint. I would rather pay a little more money, get a quality optic system, than have something cheap and not so great. Springfield definitely put some money into this pistol with the optic system, but the optic system is very important on a pistol. You have a bad optic system, it can be a pain to attach optics, or your pistol may not hold zero under recoil. So the fact they went with agency arms with a proven optic system, that really means a lot, and I'm really glad to see that they went with the agency arms optic system. Now, continuing on with the optic system, you may notice that there's an optic mounted on here. I didn't mount this optic on here. This comes mounted from the factory. This is Springfield's Hex Dragonfly optic. And for about an additional $200, you get the Hex Dragonfly optic ready package. And I love that. I love that companies are starting to make optic packages out of the box. Not just optic ready where you can put an optic on there if an optic cut, but it's actually coming with an optic out of the box. And that's the way I'd like to see pistols moving forward, where there's an optic out of the box. There's no question, should I run an optic, should I not? Nope. The optic you can just get out of the box. So it's mounted, it's zeroed, it's installed, makes it very easy for the end user. And that's how it came. This thing came zeroed out of the box. Now, there are some negatives to the optic, and we'll get into that, but I have to compliment any company that puts an optic on their pistol out of the box, because that is not the future, it is the now. Optics should be on every pistol, and I'm glad to see the fact that not only they went with a good optic system, but they give you the option to get an optic on your pistol installed and everything right out of the box. So now moving into the bad, the things that aren't quite as good about this pistol, once again, the optic. Now, the optic system, no issues. The idea of having an optic on the pistol out of the box, fantastic. The optic they chose, utter garbage. This is quite possibly the worst red dot I've ever used or ever seen. And I have used cheap $100 Chinese optics from Amazon. I have used crappy airsoft clone red dots. This is literally the worst thing I've ever seen. First off, some general negatives, some things you might see of other optics. You have to take the optic off to change the battery, which isn't the worst thing ever, right? The RMR, one of the most venerable and widely used optics out there, you have to take the optic off to change the battery, but even Trijicon now has changed that. And for an optic that just came out, I believe last year in 2022, that's pretty disappointing, right? I could see an optic that came out maybe 2015 to 2020 time, but this is 2022, 2023, and they're still releasing and coming out with optics that you have to take the optic off to change the battery. That's pretty disappointing, especially considering it's a optic included package, right? So I'm paying extra money to have the optic installed from the factory on this pistol, which is great, but now when my battery dies, I have to take the optic off and remount it, re-zero it. So it kind of defeats the purpose, right? Yeah, it gives me, for the short term, the optic's already mounted, but long term, I might as well just buy my own optic that's better. What else isn't good about this optic? Well, single button adjustment. This button right here is the only way you can adjust the brightness setting on your optic. So let's say you're adjusting your brightness setting, you go a little bit too high, and you want to cycle it again, well, it's going to go even higher. You have to go all the way to the top and then cycle back down to where you want. Or even worse, you go a little bit too low, you got to cycle all the way back up to get to where you want to go. So it's very annoying to cycle through here. Yeah, you have things like the Delta Point Pro, which are great proven optics that have a single button adjustment, but also the Delta Point Pro is several years old now versus, once again, a recently released optic. However, those two things are not a deal breaker by themselves. It's combined with the biggest flaw of this optic, and it is the emitter quality. This is the worst emitter quality I've ever seen. Pictures and video do not do it justice. When you see it with your eyes, it looks like you're looking at Van Gogh's Starry Night, like someone vomited red dot all over the optic. If I turn it on, we can try and see if you can kind of see it, but you can, if you see, it is just super distorted. It is terrible. I mean, there's just, it looks terrible, right? And you might think, oh, there's a smudge or some dirt or debris. No, this is a freshly cleaned optic. I cleaned the emitter, I cleaned the lens, everything. It's just that bad. I don't know if it's the emitter, because the refresh rate's good on the emitter, I will say. There's no like dashing or anything in the dot, but the actual, that blooming, I mean, it's not even blooming, because the actual dot itself, yeah, there's a little bit of blooming, but it could just be, you know, my eyes. It's just so much like crap all over the lens of red dot. It's just, I just don't know how else to explain it or understand it. I think it might be the actual lens they use just causes a ton of distortion, because when you're just aiming with it regularly at different objects and light sources, you actually see distortion in the lens. So I'm not 100% sure what actually causes the issue, but either way, it's a major issue, and this is a $250 optic, or in the case of this package, an extra $200. It is not worth it, especially since the optic plate you're getting in this package only accepts their optic. It is proprietary optic plate to this optic, so it just makes no sense. Proprietary footprint. It's a terrible optic. Do not get the optic package. So while this doesn't overall decrease the value of the Prodigy in my eyes, the fact that Springfield even makes this optic at all, that's just trash. And only because this is not the only way you can get the pistol is the reason it's in the bad category and not the ugly category. The next thing I'm not a big fan of on this pistol is going to be the mag well, or lack thereof. It is literally just flat in here. There is nothing in here to assist you in your reload. So if you get your mag in slightly off a little bit, it's just going to jam right up and not go in there, right? It literally just gets stuck in the mag well. You have to get that thing perfectly in there to get that magazine in there. That's really annoying, right? Especially for a higher end pistol and something that's more competition or duty oriented, not really concealed carry. I mean, yeah, you could get the shorter length, but this is a steel frame and steel slide. This thing weighs a lot, which helps in its shooting performance. If I'm stuck with this tiny little mag well, it's very annoying to have to do reloads when you're trying to go fast and, you know, reload quickly, and you're getting your mags binded up because it's literally a perfect mag well and requires a perfect reload. Plenty of pistols out there have a slight flare to their mag well, or at least the company will offer an aftermarket mag well. So the fact that there's only one mag well currently you can actually buy for the Prodigy that I found, and it requires modification of your magazine base plates, which I'm not a fan of, it's kind of disappointing and kind of annoying. It doesn't kill the pistol, it doesn't make it unusable, but it is annoying that when you're trying to reload quickly, it does make it kind of difficult to get a nice smooth reload, especially when with the 2011 platform, which I'm not harping on because it is inherent to the 2011 platform, you have to use your support hand thumb to drop the slide release if you're doing an emergency reload. So now let's talk about the ugly. The thing about this pistol that makes me hesitate to recommend it and hesitate to use it for anything other than the range and competition. That's gonna be the safety. Now, on a lot of 2011, 1911 pistols that have ambi safeties, a lot of them aren't great. They're not terrible, but they're serviceable, they're usable, right? You know, the standard safety is fine, but when you use that ambi side, it can be a little gritty, it can be a little bit, you know, just not smooth. It might bind up a teeny bit, but it's still usable, right? It's just not great. In the case of this Prodigy, before I shot any rounds through it, just dry firing it with it around my house just to mess around with it, the safety locked up. I was using it left-handed, dry firing with it left-handed, and the ambi safety completely locked up. There was nothing I could do. I had to actually take a mallet to the safety to pop it out of place and be able to fire the pistol again. Otherwise, the pistol was completely locked up, the trigger could not be pulled, and this pistol was completely unusable. That's a major issue in my mind, right? I've had optics come flying off, I've had pistols explode, I've had parts break, but I've never had a pistol not work like that out of the box. An issue you might never notice until it's too late, because if you're a right-handed shooter, unless you mess around with a pistol as much as I do, you dry fire as much as I do, when you get a new pistol, you like to get a good feel for it, and then you test it out, you know, non-dominant handed or left-handed, you would never know that that issue was a possibility on your pistol. And one day you might be in the course of, you know, whether you're using it for duty use, for self-defense, for home defense, to defend your family, you'd pull this thing out and maybe you'd have to use your left hand for one reason or another, and your pistol's completely locked up. I don't say this in many situations, I think most times it's exaggerated, but that would literally get you killed. I have no other way to say it. Unless you EDC a mallet or keep a mallet on your duty belt to pop that safety back out of place, I don't know what else you could do. You'd be screwed. And that's crazy, that's disappointing, because I like so many other things about this pistol. You know, I have a few issues with it, but those issues are nothing compared to the issue with the safety. Everything else is more preference, or it's something that could be resolved, like the optic. But otherwise, that's a huge issue. I don't see how you can defend that. It's not like, oh, there's a bunch of wear through this pistol. No, this was just dry firing it out of the box, and the safety was completely locking up on me. And now that wasn't the end of the safety saga. It got worse. So doing some standard maintenance on the Prodigy, and I've run into an issue once again with the ambi safety. So earlier in my review process, I was having an issue with the ambi safety not disengaging when using the right side of the safety. But now I'm having an issue where the safety's engaged with the slide off. I accidentally turned the safety on when I was taking the slide off for maintenance, and the ambi safety is not doing its job right now. I can't disengage it at all. And if you notice, there's this kind of metal here that looks like it's been worn down. Well, that's because that's supposed to be in a little groove of sorts. And if you look, I can just pull it right out. And you can kind of look a little more closely here where you've got that worn metal, because that piece there is supposed to move in that groove right there. It moves along here. It's this little track to keep the safety in place to limit its range of motion. And then it has this kind of like tongue and groove system here where it mates with the safety on the other side. Now, once it's out, no issues, safety functions as it's supposed to, but clearly something with the design of the Prodigy has an issue when it comes to the ambi safety system. in a way, that might be a blessing in disguise, because obviously now my ambi safety's gone, and I just have the standard safety, which I have no issues with, and it kind of cleaned things up. But it kind of sucks that essentially I took the gun apart for maintenance, and a feature that you normally have to remove grip panels and grip modules to get to somehow came off. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know if it was poorly installed or if that's just a bad design on the Prodigy, but speaking with gunsmiths and people who know the Prodigy and know 2011 pistols say, yeah, that shouldn't be possible. And then speaking with a buddy of mine who works at a local gun store, he said, yeah, that's actually an issue we saw in Prodigies where people were just dry firing them in the store and the safety actually came off. Now, speaking with some other people in the know in the firearms industry and in the 2011 world, they said that Springfield actually used an extender on the safety to use the same safety they use on their 1911s, meaning they took a part from another pistol to try and use it in a different pistol, and it kind of makes sense why there's an issue with it now. Now, it's not a widespread issue, it's not everyone who had that issue out there, but that's pretty crazy, the fact that out of the box, essentially, you could have an issue that you'd never know about, you'd never notice, unless you're a left-handed shooter, and then a fateful day, you go to use this pistol left-handed for self-defense or a duty situation, and now you, a loved one, or someone you were trying to rescue is dead. Now, obviously, this is just a sample size of one. These are just my issues, complaints, and things I like about the Prodigy. Some people have had better experiences, and some people have had much worse experiences. Very notably, Aaron Cowan of Sage Dynamics, his Prodigy wouldn't even function correctly out of the box. He had to send it to Chambers Customs and have them work on it to make it an even usable pistol, let alone a quality pistol. So that's pretty concerning to me. The fact that there's been lots of people who've had issues with the Prodigy, the fact I had an issue in which the Prodigy literally wouldn't shoot, where the safety's completely bound up and required the use of a mallet, and unless you EDC a mallet, probably wouldn't be a good day for you. That's just, I really have a hard time recommending this pistol, right? When there's companies like Bull Armory out there that, yes, they use proprietary magazines because the Prodigy uses standard 2011 pattern magazines. You have to use proprietary magazines with something like a Bull Armory, but you're getting a much better quality pistol out of the box. And then, obviously, you can just spend a little bit more and look into other companies like Staccato. So, to me, at the end of the day, if you're going to be going with a platform like the 2011 instead of a standard striker-fired or double-action pistol, you want to go with a 2011 pistol, I would say you get what you pay for, right? Unless you're getting this just for fun, just to dip your toes in the water, or you're going to send this to a gunsmith to have it worked on fully, I just wouldn't buy a Prodigy, and I definitely wouldn't buy a Prodigy to trust my life to it. I would much rather go out there and buy a Staccato, buy a Bull Armory, buy some other brand of pistol where I know I'm going to be spending a little bit more money, but I'm going to be getting a better product out of the box and a reliable product that I could depend my life on. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you liked seeing my take and experience with the Springfield Prodigy, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you think the Springfield Prodigy is the best thing since sliced bread, and you think I'm just an evil, no-good Springfield hater, because all my Springfield reviews always turn out to be negative somehow, well, there's a dislike button for a reason. Otherwise, guys, head in those comments. Let me know your experience with the Prodigy. Did you get a Prodigy and it was fantastic out of the box and it ran like butter? Or did you get a Prodigy that had a couple hiccups? Or did you get a Prodigy that was literally unusable out of the box? Let me know in those comments down below. Otherwise, guys, I'm releasing new videos, so subscribe and stay tuned.